Welcome to my review for Maniac Cop 2. Now, at the end of the first movie, Matt Cordell was unceremoniously dumped into the New York harbour, but we know he's still alive. His hand was poking out of the water. It wasn't too hard, presumably, for the writers to bring him back. And back he comes. So what's the plot for this new film? Well, in the first one, obviously, it was a bit of a roundabout route to get there, but he wanted to kill the mayor and the police commissioner, and he succeeded in doing that. So what is this film about? Well, this time, obviously, he wants to get revenge on Jack and Teresa for that business at the docks, but he also wants to sort out those guys back at the prison who disfigured him in the showers in the first place. Makes sense. So immediately this is set up to be a better film than the first one, because the thought of Cordell going after these hardened criminals is much more exciting than just going after these couple of middle-aged men in an office. So now, I mentioned in my review for the first film that there's this amazing scene halfway through where we get to see, from Cordell's point of view, this flashback to when the judge condemns him and when he's walking into the prison and then when he's attacked in the showers, and it plays out over this kind of eerie, ghostly music. Well, that comes back again. That exact same segment is used halfway through Maniac Cop 2, and normally I would say that this is a bit of a lazy rehash. It's just using old footage, but I don't mind it being used here because it's really, really good. I said it was the best scene in the first film, and I stand by that. Secondly, it's been trimmed down a little bit here. And thirdly, it's actually really relevant to the plot in Maniac Cop 2, because when you look back on this film in hindsight, you realise that him thinking about all those scenes in the prison is him kind of mulling over the fact that all this business is not unfinished just because he's got the mayor and the commissioner. He also wants to go after these ruffians from his cell block. So it kind of makes sense that later on in the film, when the opportunity arises, he would jump on it and head to Sing Sing to try and take care of those guys. So definitely relevant to play that segment halfway through, and it is such a brilliant little piece. It really is. Now, the casting of this film, and a few spoilers ahead here, so if you don't want this movie spoiled for you, then go away now, but it's not the sort of movie where it makes much difference if you know what's going to happen. But Bruce Campbell and Lorraine Landon are back, but only for 20 minutes. They're killed off. And I could not believe this when I watched this movie when I was like 14 years old, that they would do this. It took me completely by surprise. When Bruce Campbell's character, Jack Forrest, dies, I rewound the tape 5 minutes because I just couldn't believe that I'd just seen what I'd seen. And I played it again, and no, it's true. He does get killed. And it was a strange time in movies for me for this, because it was around about that time that I was watching Halloween 4 and Halloween 5, and Rachel Carruthers gets killed quite early in her second movie after being the star of the previous one. So, you know, exciting times for horror. Bruce Campbell's death, I love that scene. Matt Cordell is sort of walking down these railings towards him where Jack Forrest is stood near this newspaper stand, and he does this thing with his baton where it's like... He's just kind of swinging it from side to side with this like piece of string. One of the coolest things I've ever seen a killer in a horror film do. It's absolutely amazing. And then he sort of makes the sword thing come out when it cuts back to him for like the third time, and then he gets him. It's not long after this in the movie that Lorraine Landon's character gets killed. She gets this big chase with chainsaws and, you know, cars flying through the streets and stuff like that. But it's still not as good as a kill as the Jack Forrest one, just because of that cool move with the truncheon, in my opinion. But I'd love to know why they didn't want Bruce Campbell to come back for a second full film. I looked on the internet to see if I could find anything about it before this review, and all I could find was this kind of cryptic tweet from Campbell himself saying it was down to contractual issues or something, which doesn't really tell us anything, so I don't know. But they've replaced him in the movie as the lead with Robert Darby. He comes in, big star in his own right. I mean, who would you say is the biggest star from that era, Bruce Campbell or Robert Darby? It's kind of close, I reckon. I know Darby was coming into this film from doing License to Kill in 1989. That was a big deal. So I don't know, maybe they saw Darby as a bit more star power at the time. I don't know. But if you know more about why Campbell was relegated to this, then just let me know in the comments. Believe me, I've been curious about it for like 25 years, seriously. But Robert Darby comes in and plays this character McKinney, and it's a really cool character. He's like this noir cop with the fancy hat, and he's just your typical cheesy, tough, uncompromising cop who doesn't like his superiors, and he gets results, but he doesn't do things by the book necessarily, but he'll get it done. You know, that kind of guy. He's really, really good. Right from his first scene, he kills this perp and then just casually lights his cigarette like he's Robert Darby's version of Dirty Harry or something. I really, really like him. And the new lead is Susan Riley, played by Claudia Christian. I've never seen this actress before this movie or after it, but And it took me a while to realise that she's actually going to be the co-lead in this film. It was just halfway through that I twigged, probably around about the time that Teresa died and Susan Riley lived. But these two are really good, McKinney and Riley. They make a really good on-screen pairing, and it's a more interesting clash than Jack and Teresa from the first film, because those two, they were into each other from the first scene when they got caught in the motel, and they just, there's no arc there. They're just two people who sort of love each other or into each other or whatever. But McKinney and Riley have all this kind of conflict at the start of Maniac Cop 2, where they have all these discussions about stress on the job, and McKinney's carrying all this baggage about his partner who killed himself, and Riley kind of gets into him about that. And then throughout the movie, they slowly develop a mutual respect. And this is a more interesting journey than Jack and Teresa from the first film. So that's definitely a good thing. I actually wish that these two had got together at the end of Maniac Cop 2. The end scene with the funeral, I wish that they'd sort of walked away and he'd invited her out for dinner or something, and it implied that they would get together, but it's just the romantic in me. Now, going back to Cordell, he has a fantastic new look in terms of his makeup in this film. In the first movie, the final third of it takes place in daylight, and it really shows up the kind of dodgy job they did on sort of making up Robert Zadar to look like this, you know, disfigured cop. But in the second film, I think they get it a lot better. He just looks so much better, and the fact that the whole film takes place at night this time, which is right for a Maniac Cop film, I think, it just means that they can't highlight the details. You know, you don't get a kind of in-depth 4K look at all the bits of it, so you can see anything that's not quite right about it. Although you do get this really good shot of Cordell's ear, and you can see the whole ear is missing this time. I don't know if that was the case the first time around, but it looks great. This is the definitive look for the Maniac Cop in number 2. It really is. And I love the fact that they give him this new friendship in this one. He meets this guy played by Leo Rossi, who you might remember from, he played Bud in Halloween 2. And this is the first time I've seen him since that movie. It's like 9 years further on. I wouldn't have even been able to tell it was him, but for the fact that I've seen his name in the credits. But he's got this beard this time. You'd never tell it was him if you didn't have the prior knowledge. But he plays this real scumbag rapist guy. But he makes friends with Cordell halfway through the film. It's like something you've not seen before with this character. I mean, in the first film, he had this friendship with this this woman from the police department who had a dodgy leg, but you never saw them together for more than a minute. This time, with these two, you get to see them just randomly walking through the city centre at night, and Leo Rossi's character's just talking to Cordell, who doesn't talk back. And then they have a kind of sleepover at this guy's place. It's just really bizarre and out of the blue, but it's nice to see something different. Also in the film is Danny Trejo. Not sure if I pronounced that right. Danny Trejo. He's in all them Robert Rodriguez films. He ended up playing Machete. Well, I think this must have been one of his early roles, because you just see him for like one scene in this police station. I'm not even sure he has a line. But I was like, yeah, that's Danny Trejo. I can't believe that. Also, Sam Raimi's in this, playing as like a photographer or an investigative journalist or something like that. I saw him in the credits. I wouldn't know what Sam Raimi looks like. I can't picture him, but I definitely saw him on the list. So there's quite a few names in there. In one of my big criticisms for the first film, I said that the action kind of goes downhill in the last third once it goes into daylight and all these dodgy car chases leading to the docks. That wasn't the best part of the film at all. But in this one, the action goes completely the other way. Once it gets going towards the second half of the film, it just goes up and up, and it's really enjoyable. There's this brilliant scene at the shooting gallery where all these cops are firing these guns into these, you know, when they just line up side by side shooting at those things that hang down. Cordell just randomly comes out and just starts shooting at them from the back of the thing. It's just a brilliant idea. And then he goes into like the town hall offices and just starts taking out all these town hall folk with this hand cannon. It's like it's like the Terminator from Terminator 1, where he goes in the police station. That's brilliant. And then right at the end of the film as well, when he finally gets to Sing Sing, this long-awaited confrontation between him and the criminals who did him in, you know, before all this started. And, you know, they know he's coming. They're not just going to take this meekly. As soon as he comes in, they get him with a Molotov cocktail and set him on fire. And he's just walking through this floor, but they don't expect this, but he can just keep going, even though he's on fire. So he starts taking all these guys out on fire, and they must have had a stunt guy and set him on fire, and he was able to just walk around doing all this stuff. It's really, really good, really impressive. Now, also, at the end of the movie, there's this rap song that plays on the end of the credits that's literally a Maniac Cop rap. They've sent someone away, or a team or a group away or whatever to write this song and do it for this film. And it's incredible. I think more films should do this kind of thing instead of just putting the random pop song of the day on there or whatever. But I love this rap song. Even if you've never seen these movies and don't want to see these movies, you should check this song out because it is so funny. I think this and Alice Cooper's The Man Behind the Mask from Friday Part 6 are just my two favourite end credit songs of all time. I absolutely love them. Now, I've praised this film to high heaven. You can probably tell I really, really like it. But in terms of negatives, I'd say that there's not as much horror in this one compared to the first movie. The first movie, it had a real horror feel for certainly the first half. You know, it always felt like Cordell was in the shadows of these New York streets and he could appear at any moment. And that kind of went downhill as the second half of the first Maniac Cop progressed. But in this film, there's not really any horror at all. It's real action stuff. It's just pure entertainment, watching Cordell take a load of people out and all the new antics he gets up to as he gets closer to his Sing Sing redemption, if you see what I mean. So I guess that's a minor negative. Can't really think of anything else. You know, it's just a really good film. This is definitely the quintessential Maniac Cop film for me. So I think we'll leave it there and check out the Bag of Terror, find out what sort of score we've got. Oh, almost forgot. Yes, there is one more negative. I thought that Robert Darby's character, McKinney, he should have had more of a hand in the ending at Sing Sing. I knew I'd forgotten something. It just feels like he's on the outside, stood with the other cops in the street near the guy with the tannoy, and as the main character, I feel like he should have been up there in, you know, having more of a hand in that end action, getting involved somehow. So one more thing there counting against the movie, but still a great movie. Right, let's see what we've got in the Bag of Terror. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bloody axes for Maniac Cop 2. That's an excellent score. I think I gave the first movie 3.5. So this is an improvement, but like I said, this is the best of the trilogy. This is the ultimate Maniac Cop movie for me. So there you have it. We've got no pin for the horror locations board today because we already put one in for New York. I'm not going to put more than one pin for the city of New York, so we'll leave it there. Right, okay, I'll be back soon for Maniac Cop 3 Badge of Silence, and that will conclude the trilogy. But until next time, I will see you. Bye-bye.